we have, if my audio cuts out at any point, please let me know. I'm having a couple of internet issues around my area. You would think that somebody who lives outside of Seattle would have really good internet because it's a tech capital. Not true. So we're gonna go with it the way, but please let me know if I'm cutting out. I can always turn off my camera and we can go from there. So good morning. My name is James. I'm the Chief Learning Officer here at Horizon. We're going to take an hour and walk through Horizon Education really from a reporting lens to make sure that you understand some of the key screens within the platform that allow you to glean data from the assessments that we gave in order to drive instruction. We'll also take a quick tour of the course activities to make sure you understand the materials that are going to be available to you in the future in order to focus on PSAT and SAT readiness. We have a big group here, so I think our primary means of communication to begin with will be through the chat. If you have questions or if you have any feedback or need clarification, we can start there, and then we can go. You can come off of mute to engage. But just to get everybody started, we'll kind of start everybody muted. Fantastic. So I'm going to share my screen. And the first thing that we're going to do is cover a couple of the real basics, like how to log in. Here we go. Getting myself set up. I just need to grab my chat window, make sure I have that. All right. So to get started, if you haven't logged into Horizon Education, the URL is in the chat. It is portal.horizoneducation.com. So you should be able to use that, and then your sign in with Google or your login with Clever should both be working in Township. So those would be great options so you can single sign on in. Once you get in, you are going to have access to the individual students that you have permissions for. So it's going to be different for every person. In the interest of time, and because we do have a pretty big group here, I'm going to say that that we could work through individual login issues or individual like edge cases at the end. I'll make sure I leave plenty of time to work through those. But we'll get most of the people going through the process in a pretty smooth way.
Results and skills, particular skills.
Okay. So could I just get like a thumbs up? I have a couple people been able to get logged in. We're okay. Okay, I'm getting lots of yeses, lots of thumbs up. Great. Okay. So for today's purposes, I'm going to be using one of your schools as a demo school. Obviously, all the data that we're going to look at today is going to be actual data from Buffalo Grove, and then we might see a couple of student names. All of this, of course, is in the interest of building context. So I want you guys to take a look at it through that lens, because we will actually want to look at actual data so we can drive some real insights out of it. We're going to spend the vast majority of our time today in the student results section. So on the left-hand side, you can click student results. And everybody in the room is going to have access to high-level data about the entire campus. So the first graph that you might see is SAT student results. Even if you don't teach juniors, you're still able to see on a high level how the juniors did on their mock SAT. So you're going to have that followed by the PSAT 8-9 and followed by the PSAT 10. I'll probably use the 10 as our example group because they're right in the middle today. And what you're going to see is that underneath each one of the high level looks, you're also going to have any classes that you are listed as a primary or secondary teacher on. So obviously everybody's list is going to be different. If you have admin permissions, then you're going to be able to see all the sections within the room or within the school. So I'm going to stick to the school level data today, but as we're going through these pages, they're all going to be the same. So you can pick 9th, 10th, or 11th. You can pick one of your sections to dive into the data, and you can kind of follow along that way. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. First thing that we're going to see here is you're going to see the total number of students assessed. looks like this school had 467 students who assessed with a class average of a 714. The histogram off on the right-hand side gives us a little bit of an idea of the shape of the population, and we're going to dive in a little bit more from there. I'm going to go view report here on the right-hand side. You can choose any of the view reports that you have. I would suggest you choose one of your class sections because that's going to give you the most detailed information because you have permission to see those students. All right. I think I was clicking around too fast and then I lost my focus. There we go. You know, in the interest of time, I think I'll probably switch to my 9th graders if I can't get my 10th graders to load.
I actually noticed this morning, James, that there was a problem with BG's 10th graders not loading, that I got it to work earlier, but there must be something. I was just about to email Craig about that. So.
Oh, okay. Because I was just in there 10 minutes ago and I was previewing the 10th grade results and everything was fine. And then we hit record and you know how that works. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to pause my screen. Yeah. All right, I'm just going to do one quick log out and log back in just to get my own process. I was previewing data. Data was looking good. And now that we're recording, it's not happening. Thanks, guys. We're going to get there really quick. Here we go.
We have students in the faculty.
There we go. All right. Thanks. I think I was just moving around too much. All right, so I am now on the summary page. So what I did was I went student results, I picked a group of students, I used that view report button, and I am now on the summary page. This is going to give you a look at high-level data for your group of students that you selected. If you're an admin, you might be looking at the entire grade level. If you're an English teacher, you just might be looking at 3rd period. Whichever case you might have, you're going to have some pretty some high-level data on this page, and then we're going to go to the subsection details in just a second to drill in a little bit closer. So based off of our 467 students who tested right now, we're looking at a class average of 714, which is a solid place to be starting from. We can see that really your most common scores within this population were really within that 520 to 720 range, which is right in line with the average. That being said, there are definitely some higher performers here, right? We have 3 students scoring above a 1300, another 6 scoring above a 1200. So we definitely have that long tail up at the top showing a good range of performance on this assessment. Now, breaking down these 10th graders a little bit further, we're looking at our reading and writing and our math scores right now. So right now we're looking at a class average of 375 on the 10th grade PSAT. Now, College Board puts benchmark on this test at 430. So you guys are right within striking range of moving the average above benchmark. That's obviously a really desirable outcome for us. Picking up 55 points over the course of the year is a really reasonable goal. And so for this population, I'm seeing a lot of potential movement up towards benchmark here. Specifically, we have 91 students who are just sitting below benchmark. They're 20, 30 points away. So that's going to be a pretty reasonable lift for the campus to do to get students there. Also, I'm really liking the distribution in math right now. We definitely are seeing that a pocket of students who did really well on the assessment, who are tracked to the harder adaptive component. And we're seeing a pocket of students who are tracked to the easier adaptive component. The range to benchmark is a little bit wider in math. So we are looking at almost 100 points pickup, which is not undoable in math, but I think that lift is just a little bit higher there. So you have this really good high level look. Even if you are a math teacher, you're always going to be able to see the reading and writing scores and vice versa, because the entire campus is responsible for all students on campus to understand and be SAT ready. So it doesn't matter what subject matter you teach, having this information on your students is going to be really helpful. Okay, the next section down is your strength and improvement areas. I'll be perfectly honest, I kind of find this to be a little bit superficial. We don't have a lot of actionable data that comes out of this section. So I'm going to skip past this for now, because I have a more detailed section I want to take you to in just a little bit that's going to cover all the same content. And then right underneath there, you are going to see your access to individual student score reports. If you are looking at this for your second period history class or your fourth period Spanish class, you're only going to see the students within that class. Those of you with admin access can obviously see any student within the school. I'm going to use an example student just to walk through the student score report and make sure that you understand all the features on the student score report or what's available to them. This is also where probably our #1 most valuable page is. So I really want to make sure we spend some time on that when we get there. But to get us started, this is what a student sees when they log into Horizon Education. They're able to see their overall total score, 740. Every place where you see scores, you're always going to see that range set up. So students are starting to understand the low and the high score. And that percentile ranking can be really helpful in helping students understand where they're falling compared next to their peers. Following that, each student is able to see their reading and writing and math score along with that benchmark. And the student that we picked is pretty typical for the campus. We saw that the ELA score, the reading and writing score, was a little bit higher than math, but they were pretty comparable there. We always put those benchmarks there so students can see that target score. And if you selected a student who has already hit benchmark, you're probably going to see some orange text right above the percentile ranking. That's going to also say you've hit benchmark score. We're going to call that out every single time that a student hits benchmark score so they can see that. Okay. The next section is where we can actually start getting into some meat and start seeing some actionable data. So our students get their top 5 opportunities. These top 5 opportunities are based off of their performance on subsections and what is heavily tested on the new SAT or the new PSAT. So every student's top 5 opportunities are going to be different. Looks like our kiddo here got 2 math, 3 reading. It's always going to be different depending on what the student's performance is, but it calls out. So #1 opportunity, equivalent expressions. So that's an area in math this student can pick up. Central ideas and details, text structure and purpose, nonlinear equations in one variable. We're seeing all of these things. This is a call out for that kid saying, hey, if you're trying to improve your score, this is what we want you to do. This is where we want you to focus. Where are my ELA people in the room? We have some ELA people? All right. If you have not got a chance to look at these rhetorical synthesis items yet, This is really important. I'm seeing a couple of yeses for my ELA people, so that tells me they've already dug in. This is a brand new item type. Our students have never seen anything like this before on a PSAT or an SAT. It is so important that we give them really clear instruction and practice on these items because they are going to be challenging for a lot of our kiddos. My history, my science, my world language people, you can also help with these rhetorical synthesis items because it's a really important skill that you're going to be able to reinforce in your content area. So I'm going to go over that in a little bit more detail in a second. I just wanted to preview this rhetorical synthesis might need to be a priority for your campus going into this first round of data use. Okay, we're still on a student score report. Underneath this is the subsection details. And this is really where a student is able to dig into their own results and start to understand their own performance and start setting some goals. I know one of our objectives for this morning is to talk a little bit about student goal setting. And that really starts here on the student level. So looking at our kiddo, there was 54 reading and writing items, 31 correct, that's great, 23 incorrect, 0 blanks. That's what we like to see. So if this student, if I was looking at this with a student, I'd be pretty happy with a starting point of a 57% correct. Obviously that can go up, but this is a pretty solid start actually. However, underneath here, you can see that the student gets a ton of detailed information about their own performance, how they did in the tested areas and how they did within the sub areas are all really important here. So craft and structure averaged, we got 7 correct, 0 in, I'm sorry, let me try that again. Numbers are hard. 7 correct, 6 incorrect, 0 blanks. That's great. But within that subsection, it looks like text structure and purpose was the relative area where we still left the number of a lot of points in the table. Now, there was one item on cross-text connections, 0 correct, 1 incorrect. However, if we're looking at this as points left on the table, text structure and purpose is probably a bigger focus because there was 4 of those in the test and the student only got 1 of them right, 3 of them wrong. So we're thinking about this as a funnel, right? Student looks at their score, 380. Okay, I want a higher score than 380. I want to improve my score. So the next thing that we do when we're talking to a student, this can be whole group, this can be one-on-one, is we need to figure out where are their points left on the table? Where can we still be improving performance? And that's where we like to see students shopping in the incorrect and in the blank category, because those are points left on the table. So if I'm looking through the incorrects, 4 points on what? Rhetorical synthesis. So the student didn't get any of those items right. That's obviously an area of focus we would want to look at. I'm also looking at text structure and purpose. Remember, that was one of the students' opportunities, 3 points left on the table, and then lots of 2s throughout these categories. So you can see this is where the student's now starting to gain focus and gain a little bit of clarity about how they can continue to improve their score by looking at what was left, looking at those points that were still remaining. Same thing in math. Same idea. We've got our correct, we've got our blanks. Now this student didn't answer all of their math items, so you can see we've got a couple of blanks showing up here, which is fine, but that's obviously an area where we would want the student to be able to pick up those points. So if I'm scanning through here, equivalent expressions, and then so equivalent expressions, there were still 4 points left, 2 points left on area and volume. We've got a point here on linear functions. Those are all areas where this student can continue to improve their overall performance. Okay, so we went from an overall score down to here's where my points are, here's where I left points on the table. Now, it'd be pretty reasonable for a student to say, I don't even know what rhetorical synthesis is. What does that mean? That's where the next section comes into play.